everybody, this is Laura and welcome to another Hero Arts video. Today we'll be learning all about paper piecing. We'll be making this card using the dancing mouse stamp, which I think looks a little bit more like a skating mouse stamp, so that's how we'll be using him today. We'll learn how to paper piece a scarf and a sweater, as well as how to free-form elements on a card like this icy pond. So to get started, you'll want to take your mouse stamp and stamp the image off using black ink onto a white cardstock. Once you've done that, you can color the image in all the parts that will show that you won't be paper piecing. I'm using Copic markers here in a couple shades of brown, as well as some pink for the ears and the cheeks, and red for the bottom of the sweater that won't be covered up by the paper piecing. You'll trim your mouse out. I'm showing you a couple of examples here, one in brown and one in gray. And then you can go ahead and create the clothing. I'm using a mesh background stamp here, which adds some nice texture, and some green bamboo ink. You can ink up the back of the stamp, and you don't have to be completely even. And then stamp that off onto some apple green note card scraps. Next, you'll take your mouse stamp again, and with black ink, ink just the section of the stamp that you need. In this case, it's the sweater. Place that over your texture that you stamped onto the note card, and then trim that piece out, and you'll end up with something like this. Next, we'll create a polka dot pattern scarf. And to do that, you'll just ink up your stamp with black ink and stamp onto the polka dot pattern paper and trim that section out to create a mini scarf. You can take your mouse and adhere the sweater and add the scarf, and you'll end up with a paper piece mouse. Next, we'll create the pond. The easiest way that I know to do this is to use some double-sided sticky paper, and you'll want to take that and adhere it to a strip of cardstock. So it's got the tape on one side and it's got cardstock on the other, and then you can just take a pencil and sketch out an oval in the shape of a pond. You'll want to trim that out with some sharp scissors. And you don't have to be exact here. And then once you've done that, you'll want to lift off the sticky side carefully, and then sprinkle that with some Prismacolor glitter. And you can rub that across the top of it until it's smooth and there shouldn't be any stickiness left. And you'll end up with something like this. To create the background of our card, we'll want to stamp off some snowflakes. I'm going to use some Versamark ink and a couple of snowflakes from some new Hero Arts sets. I'll go back in with a smaller snowflake in the gaps, and then sprinkle on some white embossing powder, tap off the excess, and emboss it with your heat gun until it's nice and shiny. Once you've done that and embossed it, you'll end up with a panel like this. To do the sentiment, I'm using a word window punch. This is a McGill punch, and either of the bottom windows works for this. And I'm going to take my sentiment and ink it up with some French blue chalk ink. You can stamp that off to one side of the window punch, and then trim off the edge because that's going to go right up against the edge of your card. and you'll end up with a sentiment panel like this. To assemble the card, you'll want all of your pieces that we've created. You'll start with a dark blue note card and you'll trim it down to 4 1/4 inch square. Once you've done that, you can use some dry adhesive and add the 4-inch square snowflake panel to the front of your card. Once you've done that, you can add some dry adhesive to the back of your pond. Add that to the bottom of your note card. And then for the sentiment, we'll add that to the front using some pop-up dots, some foam adhesive. It adds a little dimension, and you can just take one of those dots and cut it into 2 with your scissors. For the mouse, I'm going to use one of the foam dots as well, because he's skating on the pond and we want to make him look dimensional as well. Place him where you want him. And once you've done that, the very last step is to take some crystal stickles and add that around the border of your pond as well as the border of your sentiment tag. It gives it a nice finished look. Once you've done that, your card is complete. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Happy paper piecing!